Well, I was going to say welcome back to the State Fair, but you've been here almost every day interacting with Iowans and talking about your message and letting them ask you questions all across the fairgrounds. So how's it going?
It has been fantastic, and if we haven't met, I'm Ryan Binkley. It has been so much fun. So we have been to 62 counties already here in Iowa and on our little journey, and it has been amazing, and we have been here every day. So it's been fun meeting with everybody and just sharing our story and getting to know people as well. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, Ryan, welcome.
Thank you.
To the Iowa
Thank
State
you.
Fair. Welcome to Iowa. I was looking on, well, first, we've been at a couple different events that we're crisscrossing and running to each other across the state. But, you know, something that struck me out, too, was the kind of the three things that you focus on, and that's you're dedicated to family, committed to faithful service, and you're driven to innovate. And I think, you know, that says a lot, and your believe is your campaign slogan, so
yes,
it weaves all into that. But you know what, you've also talked about the need for a spiritual revival in this country, and how do you go about pursuing that? And then talk a little bit about just the importance of faith, and your background and your decision to one. So let's just kick off, giving you an opportunity to talk about some of that.
Well, absolutely. So, you know, my wife and I have been in ministry since we got married, a little bit before then. And off and on. And we actually got back into business due to a tragedy in my family 22 years ago. My brother was killed by a drunk driver because we were in full-time ministry before we went back into business. So I was business, ministry, and then back to Dallas. And then we started a company with my dad. And so our company's grown. But we've always been in ministry. And so we do both. Have a church as well as a business in mergers and acquisitions, investment banking. And so the spiritual side, the business side of our life have always gone hand in hand. And what I've seen and really felt that our country's in desperate need of is we're in desperate need of an economic revival. We're so broken financially. We're on this path, and we can get into that. We're in a path of that the next generation's in far greater trouble than what Washington is letting us on, and I can see that with the background I have in economics. And then spiritually, you know, we've never been, I think, as divided as we are right now in my lifetime. I'm 55. I've never seen it this bad. Yeah. So there's something broken at the inside when we no longer trust each other, where we want to see the other side fail more than see Americans succeed. And so it goes both ways. And I see we need a heartfelt, true change in our country.
Thank you. And we are at a bad place, and the divisiveness is just it's rough when you see that everywhere. But it's not who we are. It's not where we need to be, and it's not where we're going to go.
We're gonna take it further. We're gonna heal it. I believe God has a plan.
Yeah. So one of the things too that I appreciate about you, because Iowans, Americans are dealing with this, and it's a topic that really hasn't been covered a lot, and that's health care. And you've made it as one of your top priorities in your campaign.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how we would start to address health care costs and how?
Absolutely. So this is something, so we just launched this week, you know, a 7-year economic rescue plan. So we can talk about that later. Budget-wise, how are we really going to do this economically? Because we've been on a path spending 25% more than we bring in for decades. So I don't know that we can do that without transforming healthcare, though. So healthcare is 35% of our budget, completely broken. When you start looking at healthcare, this is the way I see it. I'm looking at it analytically. We have 40% higher inflation than regular inflation in healthcare for 20 years. So look at all the big things that's changing. And then you start looking at the business side of it. It's really a segment of three major groups of monopolies that have to be broken up. Otherwise, we'll never have the healthcare that we're supposed to have. So it's really, my campaign is about actually desocializing healthcare. And this is what I'm telling America. We were so afraid of the ACA. You know, Affordable Care Act, that it was going to socialize medicine. Remember how afraid we were that we didn't want that single-payer system. We can't have that no matter what. We've already socialized health care because it's the only thing that we purchase as Americans today where we no longer ask this one question, like, how much does it cost for me to be here today? They just say, give me your card. And if you did ask, they wouldn't be able to tell us. So we've got to bring price visibility. We don't buy tractors this way, cars this way, houses this way, food this way, but we buy healthcare this way. We trust the insurance company, pray they negotiated for us. And I'll just say this, it's insanity. We can't keep doing it. So we have too few players in insurance exchanges. We need to get rid of the old law that doesn't allow insurance companies to compete across state lines. I think you have 3 or 4 major insurance carriers here. I have over 6,000 competitors in the mergers and acquisition business in the United States. Thousands. Competition makes things competitive. Competition makes prices go down. And we need to see doctors. So when we go in, we have to put, doctors are owned by hospitals now. 30 years ago, I used to work for Boston Scientific, and we used to sell to doctors. Now 75% of doctors work for hospitals. And then lastly is Big Pharma. So Big Pharma is eating away and we spend 2.5 times as much in pharmaceutical drugs. But the reason is because we give patent extensions longer than anybody else in Europe or any other developed nation. So we have to, they put patent hedges around. It's a monopoly too, so we have to fix that. And when we do, everything's going to change. Everything's going to change. Think of the Uberization of healthcare. What's it going to be like when you can go to your doctor, see what that costs, and put the patient back in charge? Because when you do, you'll start treating like your car insurance. You know, if you don't like your car insurance today, what do?
You go get another
You go
quote.
get a new one. How long does it take? Like an hour. But if you don't like your health insurance, what do? You cry. You just go, you call HR and you complain. But that's all you can do because you're stuck. So we have a plan to fix this.
Transparency, it
Yep.
needs to be addressed.
Have to.
We're kind of bouncing back and forth a little bit, but, you know, Iowa was the exception to the red wave. We just didn't see what we thought we were going to see in the last election. We saw disappointing losses across the country, including, and so you've talked about this, I've heard you talk about it, and I think it's really important, including in traditionally red cities in Texas. You see them going blue. How do you see our party gaining votes in the next election? How do we bring new people to the table? And what role would you play at the top of the ticket to deliver those wins for America?
Well, thank you. This is the most important thing the Republican Party has to see today. It's the biggest opportunity we've had since Jimmy Carter, I think. So we can look at some of the losses, we can look at some of the things, and we can wonder about what happened in the past, or we can see this is the biggest opportunity for our party because we've got a president in place right now that is not leading well. He's not connecting to America. He's got us in a war that like we need to get out soon. We'll talk about that if you want. But right now it's a great opportunity. But we're missing it because we're so divided. We're fighting a far left segment, which we need to stand against. But the 49% of America identifies as independents. 49%. So I'm from Texas. We lost Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, which we expect to lose Austin because it's kind of weird. But we lost Fort Worth.
I think you lost Austin a while back.
I went to school there, my undergrad.
Yeah,
We lost it way back then.
You lost it a while ago.
But here's what's scary. We lost Fort Worth, which I called the last Alamo of Christian conservatives, and we're conservatism in North Texas, and for the first time in 65 years. So what it's saying is we're losing big cities. Now here's their challenge. We lost, as a nation, 46 of the top 50 cities in the last election, meaning the fastest growing segments, where the fastest growing communities are, people are young people. There's 70 million young people, Gen Zers and millennials, and they start living in these cities. It's now growing. We're not connected to millennials. They voted 70% for Joe Biden in these cities. So we've got to connect to them with a new message. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start connecting to people with, I'll call it a Republican alternative to socialism. What is our message for the poor? What is our message for people that are struggling in the inner city today? And so we've got some plans, and it's called a job movement, getting people back to work, but teaching them, amen, teaching them at a 9th grade level that having a skillful trade is not a secondary education, but learning how to have a business in electronics or computers or technology or being a craftsman or being a plumber or electrician. This is what you can come out making more money today after 1 or 2 years of training than 4 years of a degree that some people are struggling with. And we have to teach them doing a passion for their life is a great career, and we've got to show them that.
I'm proud to say that in Iowa, we lead the nation in the number of apprenticeships.
No question.
And we have work-based learning, registered apprenticeship programs. To your point exactly, get these kids in front of these different types of industry, business, and let them find where they have the passion, and then get them used to earning a paycheck. And, you know, I love one of the kids that was in a registered apprenticeship program earned enough to buy an F-150. And I'm telling you, we had a couple in the trades in that first registered apprenticeship program, and after that we had about 25 because they all wanted to do what Charles was doing so that they could go buy an F-150 truck. It's what we do. And I want to just put a plug in July. We talk about the big cities. Forbes actually named Des Moines in the metro area as the best place for young professionals to live. So this is an example we can use, right? It fits in with what you're talking about, though. We're doing what you're saying.
It's got to happen because the electorate has changed as well. We talked about this earlier. 40% of America is minorities today. And if we're not careful, the Republican Party, we have a tendency sometimes to use the same message we used 40 years ago to compete with people today or to share a message today. I kind of liken it to IBM. So when I was in college, I used to sell computers for IBM. I would show them and demonstrate them. And we thought we were pretty good back in 1989 until this company called Apple showed up. Everybody heard of them? Anyway, they started thinking about the next generation. This is what we need to do. Start thinking ahead. What's coming down the pike? How is our message relevant to minorities, to urban America, to college students? And I'm asking college students, I want to start a Peace Corps movement, like a Peace Corps movement. Get college students by the hundreds of thousands volunteering, because in primary education, especially in urban America, only 1 out of 6 are reading at the 8th grade level. We got to be smart again. Somebody asked me my first week here, Ryan, how are you going to bring jobs back to America? And I said, well, I can bring reshoring. We have some tactics on tax plans, but the best way for us to do it, I'm talking long term, let's create brilliant kids in the United States of America again that can compete at the world stage. Right now, we're falling behind. We have to catch up again.
So, again, coming from Texas, you have firsthand knowledge of the Biden's administration failure to secure the border. We're helping. We've got National Guard troops down there right now, but it's the federal government's role to secure the border. So how would you handle, first of all, the border crisis, and would you pair that with immigration reform and kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like?
You know, this is a great opportunity for the Republican Party as well. For us to lead in this one area that I will say this, we have not led in 50 years. So this is one area. Usually the Republican Party, they're not at the table on health care. You know, we let the Democrats do that. We're not at the table with education. We let the Democrats do that. And we're not at the table with immigration. We say, oh, that's not our area. We just want to kick everybody out, right? So I am for a secure border. We have to secure the border, but we can't just do it in Texas. We have to do it all the way to California, because there's a governor over there named Gavin Newsom that'll put a big welcome sign up. You know that's true. And he will not allow National Guard there. I'm sure he'll fight it at every turn. So the question is, a lot of my counterparts are saying, Ryan, let's put the military there. I think it's a short-term strategy. Certainly we can do that in case of an emergency. But as soon as a Republican president's out, those guys are off, and we know that. So what's the real solution? I think it's a long-term solution to secure the border, and it's going to take money. So I'm supporting the Dignity Act. It's a brand-new act, Republican-led. Everybody say Republican-led. This is what we need to do. No, we're driving the ship now. So our act is called the Security and Dignity Act, which falls in line with Representative Maria Salazar from Florida. I went and met with her in D.C. She's promoted this Dignity Act, which is amazing, because what it does, it provides funds, secures the border from coast to coast with barriers, technology, towers, people. $30 billion. What President Trump wanted to do, this actually has a funding mechanism for, so we can get it done so 50 years from now our kids won't have to wonder, do we have an open border here? That's what we need. Amen? We have to have that. And then what it also does is it provides, I would say this, dignity. We have people that have been here 20 and 30 years, some that came over here when they were 2 or 3 years old, and I've talked to people, and they're just saying, Ron, we're going to kick them all out. And I'm like, listen, there's a group of people that came in here in the last, we'll call it 3 or 4 years. And this Dignity Act does not leave any room for people to come in the last 5 years. They have to go. But actually people that have been here the longest, name the number, 7, 8, 10 years, 5 years longer, 20 years, allows them to come out of the shadows, have work registration, legal work registration. It's not amnesty. They have to pay a fine if they committed a crime by crossing the border. Like any of us, you either go to jail or you pay a fine. They pay about a $10,000 fine over 12 years, but then they can work here legally. It meets the worker solutions, but more importantly, it does this. It solves the problem once and for all. It keeps fentanyl out of our country. Right now, as you know, it's killing 200 to 300 people a day, and I'm telling Iowans everywhere I go, how many people have to die a day before we want to get together and do something together? So this is the way I will lead as president. As president, I will no longer vilify every Democrat on Friday and then ask them to work with me on Tuesday. I will try and lead in a bipartisan way, because there's some problems we have Republicans can't solve on their own. And I'll tell you what they are. They're the budget. We can't do that on our own. We just saw McCarthy and them celebrate for a $4 trillion debt increase. Can't do it on our own. Can't do the border. Can't do health care. And you can't truly do a movement into urban America unless we start doing things together.
Thank you. And so And another piece of this, because this is also what you bring to the table as a businessman, you understand the importance of balancing a budget. Just like we do in Iowa, you know, we have a law that says you simply can't spend more than you take in. I mean, I think it's pretty much common sense, but actually even last year we only spent 82% of our available revenue, and that's how we can continue to bring down taxes. So, and you just launched, I think, a new plan. So how would you ensure that we get our fiscal house in order in Washington, D.C.? To talk a little bit more detail about that.
You know, this is one of the main reasons I'm running for president. I've got 5 kids, 13 to 23. If we don't do something for the next generation, we likely have been the generation, I think, that may be the most irresponsible financially in the last 100 years. We have had more money. We have likely prospered most. If you look at how much money has come in our country and all of our wealth in the last 30 years, it's been incredible, likely more than the previous 2 generations combined. And if we don't solve this, I think 50 years from now, we're going to be known as the generation in history books. Wow, they prospered a lot, but they didn't sacrifice much. And we could be known as the generation that sacrificed the least. I will not let that happen. As president, I'm looking at this like a business person. So I'm an investment banking firm, about 400 employees, mergers and acquisitions. We teach middle market companies on how to look at markets, cost of capital, what it means to the value of their company. I look at this, we're in so much trouble. We've seen our nation downgraded in credit for the 2nd time in U.S. history. Same day, Janet Yellen comes up and says, there's nothing to see here, it's all okay. Well, I didn't forget the bank failures, did you, that were earlier on this year, 3 in a matter of a couple weeks. I didn't forget the downgrade. Moody's gave 10 banks last week. What's happening is we're much more fragile than what Washington and the media is letting us know. And the reason is because of our spending that we do, it has a consequence. When you spend too much money, you have to borrow more money to make your own interest payments. So interest payments, just watch it. It's the fastest growing item on the expense sheet of the federal government today. In 8 years from now, we're on track to be $50 trillion in debt, spending about 14% of our budget on interest, about as much as our military and defense. We can't do that. So what happens is we borrow money, and that's what causes all the inflation. So how many of you guys have experienced inflation in the last 2 years? I met with farmers yesterday, and they said, Ryan, my farm crop's okay, but everything is 30% higher. And so I just saw CPI numbers. They're 15%. But that's not accurate because that's a basket of 100 and plus goods. What really matters, food, shelter, also fuel, gasoline. So only if you need to eat, sleep, or drive somewhere is it up 30%. Does anybody have to eat, sleep, or drive somewhere? So this is what's costing it if we don't get this fixed. So what am I going to do? I'm going to bounce the budget because we have to. And I'm going to propose a 7-year plan. We have launched it. It's on our website, Binkley2024.com, a 7-year economic rescue plan that balances the budget, saves the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is getting trampled. And right now, we could lose our place as the world's reserve currency in a few years if we're not careful. And that means a lot to us. Most people don't know what the debt does. Governor, you know what America does? Most people I talk to in Iowa, they don't know about exactly our debt or our credit or now why inflation is here. But inflation is here because of bad spending habits, which Republicans, including President Trump, did a lot of good things. I'm not going to knock him on the good things he did, a lot of good things. But we went $7.5 trillion in debt under his 4 years, a lot of it COVID, but not all of it. Yeah. And then, of course, we're doing the same thing now. So when we increase the money supply by 40% in just a couple years, that's inflation. Yeah. And we can't do anything about it. So now the Fed tries to raise rates, and what raising rates means, no growth. Cost of a tractor is more. Cost of a house is more. Companies can't buy businesses. So you're looking at stagflation. This is the opportunity, though. First time since Jimmy Carter, stagflation could be here again if we're not careful. So this is what I'm doing. Balanced budget, save the dollar, save us from inflation.
A businessman. That's what we need.
We have to do it.
Have to do it. Okay.
We have to make hard decisions. Yeah. A lot of people ask me, how are you going to do that? Such a blocked Congress. You know, I know it's not going to be easy. I see myself looking in the camera, talking to America, saying, look at your children. We have to do this together.
We have to do it together. Okay, it's the Fast 3.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
I think.
Now, you've been here. Well, you've been on the trail, so give me one funny campaign moment on the trail. Okay. There's a lot.
Okay, my funniest moment actually involves the day when I was going to see you one night. So we are traveling. We're going to all these counties, Pizza Ranch tour. That's what we're on. And we were going to Shelby County. And we had to get to the governor to meet with you at Dickinson County later that evening. I'm in a full suit. We're running late to get to a Pizza Ranch at lunchtime. Who else been praying for rain here? Has anybody been praying for rain? God answers your prayer. But anyway, so it rained on the other side of this hill because we got on a gravel road to take a shortcut. Not recommended. Anyway, And so we get in a dirt road, and it rained. We start fishtailing it down this road, and then we're like, gas it to get up. And we went up about halfway, then we slid back down in a ditch. So I step out, and I am like this much in mud, full suit on, about to meet with the governor. I don't think we had met yet. That was the first time. And so I'm like, dear God, what are we going to do? Tow truck was right there. We wouldn't have got out. But my friend walked up the hill, because it was miles of cornfields. And a woman stopped in a white truck. And she rolled down her window and said, can I help you? And we said yes, and she said, my name is Faith. This is why we
Believe.
Why do we believe? Because how are we going to come out of this? We're going to come out of it with faith. We're going to come out of believing in each other again, believing in God. And it was funny because I went to that meeting at Shelby County. I was 45 minutes late to the pizza ranch, but I showed up with muddy shoes.
And they loved you.
And they loved it anyway. You know what the best thing about Iowans? Iowans. They all waited. And then I went to the Shelby County shoe store, bought a brand new pair of shoes, so I contributed to Shelby County economy. Size 12 black, still wear them on the trail today, so that's my
Good
story.
job. And he did make it to the event that
And
night.
I
I
did.
can verify
I
that.
did.
Favorite fair food that you've had or are looking forward to having?
Okay, they should pay me commission for saying this because I've said this so many times, and I am not one to just eat any fair food because, you know, calories have a cost to them, and so I am calculated. But if everybody doesn't run out to the bacon box and get the grinder, it's just on you. That's all. It's so good, it's worth whatever calories are in it. So
I
the
think he
grinder,
knows, too, we're the #1 pork producer in the
And
country,
so-
right? So let's give an amen for that.
bacon box, send a donation because I'm just sending a lot of people your way.
Yeah, I think I ate one of their samples there a couple of years ago, and I think it had like 14 pieces of bacon in it or something. I don't know. I'm like, any day I can
it's
start
worth
with
it.
bacon,
It's worth it.
it's
It's
good.
worth it.
Favorite walkout song?
Don't stop believing.
Oh,
By Journey.
Oh, okay.
You know, this is our message, and we
Very
can't
good.
stop believing.
Don't stop
Steve
believing.
Perry. Steve Perry.
Perfect. Okay, final question. And, you know, as I travel the state, Iowans tell me they want a leader that'll stand up for the American people, stand up for this country and our freedoms, that have the moral conviction to do the right thing even when it's really hard, that has the vision and the resolve to deliver, and that needs to start on day one. And most importantly, they usually end with saying, we need somebody that can win. So tell us why you are that person.
Our country is just broken right now. I see it in a way that the needs that it has economically, my background is suited for. I really see things financially out of two lenses. I'm a pastor and a CEO of an investment bank, and we are so broken in both of these areas. If we don't solve our financial crisis we're in, we're going to look back in one time. If we could look back in history 2 years before the Great Depression or the Great Recession and go, what could we have done different? We're in that moment, and now it's time to use wisdom. This is what I believe. Something's coming that we're not prepared for. That's why I'm running. I see it happening. I see a perfect storm coming of expansionary inflation, slow growth due to the banking situation and raising of interest rates, and an opportunity for us to connect to people, connect to their hearts, get back to job training, get back to winning. We have to grow our base. Right now, we only won 46% of the vote in the last 2 elections, the Republican Party. Regardless if you think it was stolen, 47%. What it wasn't 50. Ronald Reagan in his second term went 59%. He transcended the party, and he got a coalition. If I, as president, do not connect to America, I'll never have a coalition to solve some of these big issues. A divisive platform will not take us there. Most of my counterparts, I love a lot of things they stand for, but going farther right, going farther harder, and fighting and vilifying the left is not going to win the middle. And at the end of the day, we have to recognize that we have to not compromise our message. We have to communicate our message. We have a great message. We've had poor messengers. And we have a great message of a small government, freedom, liberty that matters. I will carry that message as president. I will make sure that everybody in America, whether you're from rural America, suburbs, or urban America, regardless of your race or regardless of your age, that you feel like this one thing will be there in your life. A statement that I don't hear enough of, that we'll all be able to say, I'm proud to be an American. And they'll be able to say that because our nation is going to be on track financially. We're going to solve the budget crisis. We're going to lead with wisdom. It's going to take all of God's grace for us to come together and heal our wounds. But in Ecclesiastes, the Bible says this: there's a time for war and a time for peace. It is a time for us to connect to each other, build up, and solve these problems. I will lead as president our country to do that. And when we're strong here domestically, financially, and together, there will be nothing that can stop us. Abraham Lincoln said it this way. He said, if America is ever destroyed, it will not be from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms and stumble, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. We're at a precipice of pulling ourselves apart. I would call it like a Band-Aid you're pulling. I can see the whiteness of it. It's time for us to restore our country back to wisdom, transparency, faith in each other, and faith in God. And I will lead us that way to the greatest days of prosperity ahead.
Ryan Binkley, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Appreciate
we
it.
appreciate you being a part of it. Thank you.
God bless you guys. Thank you very much.